All right, so today we're gonna deep dive into protein.
Okay.
Yeah, specifically protein timing.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so this is something that I think a lot of people who are interested in fitness and building muscle are aware of.
Yeah, definitely.
They know that protein is important,
Yeah.
but timing I feel like is something that is maybe a little less understood.
Right.
So I think it'll be great to kind of dive into this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So maybe to start, can you just give us like a quick overview of what protein timing is and why it matters?
Sure. So protein timing, as you mentioned, we know that protein is critical for building muscle.
Yeah.
And protein timing is really just this idea of like being strategic with when you consume protein
Okay.
throughout the day
Gotcha.
to kind of optimize muscle growth.
Right.
So it's not just about hitting your total protein intake for the day.
Yeah.
It's also about when you're actually getting those protein servings in. And the reason why it matters is because it can actually influence how effectively your body builds and repairs muscle tissue
Okay.
and ultimately kind of impact your progress over time.
Yeah. So I've always heard this thing about like the anabolic window.
Yeah.
And like after you work out, you have this like 30-minute window to get a protein shake in, or you're like you've lost your gains.
Yeah, that's definitely a common myth.
Is that true, or is that kind of overblown?
I'd say it's definitely overblown.
Okay.
The anabolic window, it does exist.
Yeah.
But it's not nearly as narrow as people think.
Okay.
So you don't need to like rush to chug a protein shake the second you rack your weights.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Research has actually shown that muscle protein synthesis, which is that process of, your body building new muscle,
Yeah.
that it remains elevated for several hours after a workout.
Oh, wow.
So it's not this like tiny 30-minute window. It's much more prolonged.
Okay, so you're saying like even if I get my protein in an hour or two after my workout, it's still going to be beneficial.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, that's good to know.
The key here is really consistency.
Okay.
So, while that immediate post-workout period is a good opportunity to provide your muscles with those amino acids,
Right.
it's not the only time that matters.
Right.
So you want to make sure you're getting protein throughout the day.
Gotcha. So if we're not so worried about that immediate post-workout window, what are some other like key times during the day when we should be focusing on our protein intake?
Yeah. So I'd say one important time is pre-workout.
Okay.
Having some protein an hour or two before your workout can really help to prime your muscles for growth.
Okay.
It ensures that you have amino acids available in your bloodstream when you're actually training.
So it's like fueling up the tank before you...
Exactly, yeah. It's like giving your muscles the building blocks they need before they start that heavy lifting.
Right. And what about after the workout besides that window we've already talked about?
Yeah, so as we mentioned, that post-workout period is still important.
Yeah.
Even if it's not that super narrow window.
Okay.
So having protein within a couple of hours after your workout is still beneficial for helping with muscle recovery and growth.
Okay.
And then beyond pre and post-workout, it's really about consistent protein intake throughout the day.
Yeah.
Aiming for around 20 to 40 grams of protein every 3 to 4 hours can really help to keep that muscle protein synthesis elevated.
Gotcha. So it's like a steady stream of protein going to the muscles.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good way to think about it.
Okay, so you mentioned pre-workout, you mentioned post-workout. What about other times, like what about before bed?
Yeah, so before bed is actually another really good time to have some protein.
Oh, really?
A lot of people might think that eating before bed is bad, but when it comes to muscle growth, it can actually be helpful. And the reason for that is because when you sleep, your body is essentially in a fasted state.
Right.
So you're not eating for several hours.
Okay.
And during that time, your body can actually start breaking down muscle tissue for fuel.
Oh, wow. So we want to avoid that.
Exactly.
Okay.
So by having some protein before bed, you can provide your body with a slow-releasing source of amino acids that can help to prevent muscle breakdown.
Okay, that makes sense.
And support muscle growth even while you sleep.
So it's like giving your body something to work with overnight.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's pre-workout, post-workout, before bed. What about just like throughout the rest of the day?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, aiming for those 20 to 40 gram servings of protein every 3 to 4 hours is a good general guideline.
All right.
So that might mean having protein with your meals.
Right.
And maybe also incorporating a protein shake or a snack.
Gotcha.
Between meals.
Okay. All right, so this is all like great in theory.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if you could maybe give us some like practical examples of what this might actually look like in a day.
Sure, yeah. So, let's say, for example, you typically work out in the afternoon.
Okay.
For breakfast, you might have something like a protein smoothie
Okay.
with maybe some whey protein and oats or Greek yogurt and fruit.
Gotcha.
For lunch, you could have grilled chicken or fish with some quinoa or brown rice.
Right.
And then for your pre or post-workout snack, you could have a protein bar or a protein shake
Okay.
for convenience.
Yep.
And then for dinner, you could have something like salmon and vegetables.
Right.
And then before bed, you could have a small serving of Greek yogurt or
Right.
cottage cheese.
And all of that is like within those like 20 to 40 gram ranges.
Exactly, yeah. And obviously, portion sizes would vary depending on your individual needs and goals.
Okay.
But that just gives you an idea of kind of how you can spread out your protein intake
Yeah, that's super helpful.
throughout the day.
Are there any like common mistakes that you see people making when it comes to protein timing?
Yeah, definitely. I think one common mistake is just thinking you need to have like huge amounts of protein at every meal.
Yep.
As we talked about, consistency is key.
Yeah.
So it's better to have moderate amounts of protein spread throughout the day
Gotcha.
than to like overload at one meal
Right.
and then neglect it at other times.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Another mistake I see is people relying too heavily on protein supplements.
Okay.
Protein powders can be convenient,
Yeah.
but they shouldn't be your only source of protein.
Right.
It's important to prioritize whole food sources
Okay.
whenever possible.
Like chicken and fish and things like that.
Exactly, yeah. Those whole foods provide a variety of other nutrients and benefits that you might not get from just a supplement alone.
That's a good point. Okay, this has been really helpful. Is there anything else that we should keep in mind when it comes to protein timing?
I think the main thing is to just remember that protein timing is just one piece of the puzzle
Okay.
when it comes to building muscle.
Right.
You also need to make sure you're training effectively,
Yeah.
getting enough sleep, managing your stress levels.
All the other good stuff.
Exactly. And, all of these factors work together to influence your results.
Okay. So it's like a holistic approach.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Well, this has been super helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing all this information.
Yeah, of course. Happy to help.
I feel like I learned a lot, and hopefully our listeners did too.
I hope so.
So to wrap things up, is there anything that you would leave our listeners with as they kind of continue on their muscle building journeys?
I just say, don't get too caught up in the minutia of protein timing. Okay. The most important thing is to just be consistent with your protein intake throughout the day.
Okay.
And make sure you're getting enough protein overall.
Okay.
Don't stress about hitting those exact numbers every single hour. Just try to be consistent and you'll see results over time.
Awesome. Yeah. I think that's a really good point to end on. Consistency is key.
Yeah.
And don't get too stressed about it.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you again so much for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
And we'll get you next time.
All right. See you.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. That was great. I always love talking about fitness and nutrition.
Me too. It's fascinating.
And I think protein timing is something that's super important. And I'm glad we got to dive into it today.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that can make a big difference.
Yeah.
If people are aware of it.
For sure. For sure. All right. Well, that wraps up another deep dive.
Sounds good.
Until next time, stay curious.
Yeah, stay curious.
And keep learning.
Absolutely.
Bye.